I'd like to open the November 18th, 2021 Stockbridge Select Board meeting. First up on our agenda is a National Grid hearing, Lincoln Lane. I move that we open the hearing for a petition of the Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, to excavate the public highways, Lincoln Lane, and run and maintain underground electrical conduits beginning at a point approximately 0 feet south of the center line, etc. So do we have the applicant here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Could you identify yourself, please?
This is Steve Harrod from National Grid.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So would you like to give us a brief explanation of what is being planned on Lincoln Lane?
Yes, absolutely. So we are looking to install some underground wire from the beginning of Lincoln Lane and then move south toward where that first pole is on Lincoln Lane. And then we would install a pole box on the west side of Lincoln Lane. And from there, we would go underground through the property. This is outside of the town jurisdiction, but then we would go underground through the property of 74 to continue to service. I believe there's about 10 houses or so past that. So we're looking to bury an underground line to continue to serve existing houses.
Okay, well, I don't believe we have that many houses down there, but.
There's two now.
Exactly. So do we have anyone who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this permit?
I'm not really sure which direction he's talking about. I live on Lincoln Lane.
Okay.
I live on the corner with the telephone pole is at the street.
Patrick, can you pass that?
I can call up the.
You're gonna call it up on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah, kiddo.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
Yeah, we'll pull it up so you can take a look at the detail. Unfortunately, that's not in color.
Okay.
Okay, so they're running from East Main Street down Lincoln Lane.
But this pole is right on my property. Number 76, Lincoln Lane. So are you going to dig up my trees as well? Is this what we're talking about?
That's a question for Stephen.
Yep, I'm taking a look at where 76 is. Right, so we would do our best to not dig up any trees. We would hug kind of that property, or no, I'm sorry, not property. We would hug that roadway line as much as possible or go into the roadway if necessary.
Oh, good, because I have an old apple tree there that I like, and I had planted hedging, which I certainly don't want to lose.
Okay.
And then will you be taking down the pole then, since you're doing underground lines?
So the two poles that you're able to see, so the one that's on the corner of East Main Street and Lincoln Lane, and then the one that's further, if you live out 76, then the one that's, yeah, the one that's kind of on the the first one on Lincoln Lane, the one that's really close to house 74, that one will also remain.
So the telephone poles and the wires are all going to remain, but you're putting something else in? Additional wires?
Correct. That's because we have to remove a wire. So there's currently wires that go behind the house of 74.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to remove because the house 74, they're building out.
So there's a bunch of wires that traverse that property from east to west right by 74, and they're all going to end up down in the ground?
Correct.
Okay, but it doesn't go past that point. It doesn't go further down.
So this is my house at my street point. So is all that wiring going to be buried?
Yeah. You might, if you want to take a look at this, it's a little easier to see because it's in color. So that's the same diagram, but it is marked in red where they're doing this. So here's East Main.
Yeah, but the existing wires are staying, is that right?
That is correct.
Oh,
with the exception of the wire that goes behind 74.
Okay.
So visually, it really doesn't change much.
It doesn't change I just don't want my trees all dug up, that's all.
Well, but they're digging up the ground, so it's good to ask the questions now, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it makes a
So-
huge difference to my house. I got an enormous old apple tree there that I don't want to lose.
Right, and that's a shade tree, which, so that would, to take that down, that would require a public hearing.
Right.
So,
And also, I don't want
not a
my
public property,
hedge to
though.
disappear.
pardon me?
It's not on public
That's
property,
quite a
it's
bit
on
of
her
money.
property.
I can't hear you.
It's not on public property, it's on her
Oh,
property.
it's on her property?
Yeah.
Okay,
But Lincoln Lane's a town street.
yes, yes, it is.
Right. So typically we own 5 to 10 feet
10 feet
off
back.
the road.
Yeah.
This is actually town property.
It may be, without going and taking a look at that particular apple tree, but it may or may not be on town property.
The lane itself is not within the property bounds. I think that it's off-center to where the property lines actually run, because I actually have a picture of the surveyed lines of our thing.
You do?
And I know that the corner of my property is actually in the lane itself.
Really?
Yeah.
That sometimes happens.
It was old, it was just a dirt road, so
Exactly.
nobody cared, where
Exactly.
all that went.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Stephen, can we have an assurance from National Grid that if you felt the need to take down any tree, you would certainly notify the town prior to any action being taken?
Yeah, so it's custom of us that if we have to remove trees, we have to notify the town or the property owner. And for this circumstance, I don't believe that we'd have to remove any trees. Like, if we have to, whatever excavation we're gonna do, that will be done, trying not to get rid of trees. Like I said, we'll move into the Lincoln Lane if necessary with the excavation.
Okay, thank you.
And do they repair the grass and so on that they dig up?
Yes, we are responsible to, try and put back as best as possible what we excavate.
So, good morning. My name's David Saccone. I live at 2 Lincoln Lane, which is further down the lane. And will we still have access to get in and out to Main Street?
Yeah, so I also spoke with another abutter, I think, Mary Green. She had the same concern. And yes, we're not going to blockade you in or out of your house.
Yeah, I didn't know with the construction if that, would be, temporarily blocked, so, okay.
About when would you begin?
So that I'm not sure. There are other permissions that we need. We need some permissions from 74 and from their property owner 72 as well. This is kind of one of the few check boxes that we have. And then also I'm going to meet on site with the people that are going to be doing that excavation. So I can point out things like the apple tree at 76 East Main Street and say, avoid this at all costs and so on. So at this time, I can't say when.
All right.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. I move that we close the hearing for deliberation of the board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Us.
So, Patrick, what are your thoughts on this?
I think we should condition it, that if they need to take the trees out, they have to come back.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too. We can always put that in there. And although I don't think that we have to worry, I think it doesn't hurt.
I think Steve's on it, just in case.
Okay, so I move that we approve the application with a proviso that if any trees do need to be taken down at any point, that prior to any action being taken, National Grid contacts the town of Stockbridge.
Well, I'd go further and say they have to come back and talk to us. I would go further and say they have to come back and to this board. They don't have permission to do that.
Okay, I can word it differently.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's the gist.
All right, so I approve that I move that we approve the application. However, if National Grid feels the need to take down any trees, that they come back to the select board to have a discussion and gain approval.
Perfect. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we do have another special permit hearing scheduled, but that's for 9 a.m. So we're going to continue with our agenda. Next item is to take action on meeting minutes from October 14th, 21st, and 28th.
Okay. I had just a comment on the 14th minutes. I don't know, I mean, they reflect the meeting. Great Barrington had, well, I can pull it up, hold on. I'm just figuring out how to use this thing, so give me a,
Well, I mean, if you have an issue with one of the sets of minutes, we can just postpone approving those
just the 14th one, yeah.
until you
Sure.
know, can communicate what it is,
So they're relatively minor, but, okay.
all right?
I will make a motion, we approve the 21st and 28th minutes.
All right, I'll second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, next up, we have discussion and clarification of the Tri-Town Health Budget by Dr. Charles Kenny. Hi, Charlie. Charlie, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Good. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. What I'd like to do is to give you a little bit of background of the current Tri-Town Health Department budget and agreement with the other towns. And in a few weeks, maybe 2 months or so, Jim Willis is scheduled to come before you to present the budget for Tri-Town for approval, the annual budget approval. And he will discuss the details of the actual allocations, and if you have any questions and things like that. So I'll give you the background on how we got there, and then Jim will discuss the details. So if I may, I'll be brief. Jim Willis came on to Tri-Town in about 2007 or 2003. Peter Colazzi was the director at the time. I was first on the Board of Health about 30 years ago. And Peter Colazzi explained the method of allocation of the various services and costs and incomes to me, as well as the agreement. And when Jim came on board, it was essentially the same agreements and the same methodology of doing things. Now, as you know, Tri-Town is functions to permit restaurants, inspect restaurants. It functions to permit and inspect special events that occur around town. And it also does things like septic field inspections and permitting and things like that. As a result of this, Tri-Town used a lot of its staff, and the staff obviously costs Tri-Town money, which is then the cost, part of the cost basis for what Tri-Town does. Generally speaking, if you look at what Tri-Town does, about 80 to 90% of the work done by Tri-Town is for commercial purposes. And that's basically the way it's always been. It fluctuates between 80 and 90%. And I'm talking about Stockbridge now when I talk about it. Okay, I'm talking about Stockbridge's the Tri-Town aspects. Jim brought to my attention, I think it was in 2010 or maybe a little after that, that the allocation system for both costs and income was the same one that Peter had talked about in the 1980s and 90s, and that it needed to be reviewed. In addition to that, he said Massachusetts state laws had changed, and that the actual agreements between the town needed to be reviewed and upgraded to conform with the state laws. I asked Jay Bukowski if he could help us out with the financial aspects of this. And Jay met with us over several months. He gave very generously of the town, of his time, to the town doing this. I really appreciate what Jay did. We met on a regular basis for several months, and Jim had his own method of allocating the costs and the incomes from the permits and things like that. Jay had another method, and I had my own method that I figured out from studying the thing. And we asked Jim to run the numbers using all three methods. He did. And the three methods converged on a certain kind of allocation system. They all came up with the same methodology, really. Jim's method of doing things was the most straightforward and easy to implement for him. So we agreed that this would be the way to do it. We took that, we thought we had a good allocation paradigm. We took this before Danielle, who was the administrator then, Chris Ketchen from the manager from Lee and Lennox, and along with representatives from each of the three financial committees in the towns and the boards of health in the towns. And we met together and it was unanimously approved. We all agreed that this would be the way to go forward with it. Jim then took the agreement and brought it before each of the separate select boards, and it was approved by each of the separate select boards. And this is what we currently now use. As a result of that, Tri-Town moved from being probably the lowest, the health department is never intended to be a profit-making undertaking for towns. It basically underwrites. It's an infrastructure element of the towns that is required by residents and businesses. So it's not intended generally to be a profit-making business, but Tri-Town, before we set up this agreement and financial thing, was basically had the lowest percentage of revenues to costs of any of the boards of health and health departments in the county. And as a result of this agreement, we've become now the highest revenue maker and highest percentage-wise, so that we've moved from being in a disadvantaged position to an advantaged position that way. In addition to that, prior to this agreement and the revision of the agreement, we had great staff instability. Jim would train people; they would get on board from various places in the state, coming here, and Jim would train them, and then they would go somewhere else because we didn't have an adequate financial package for these people. And as a result of what we did, the Tri-Town Health Department staffing was stabilized. And this is another thing that Jim and Jay deserve credit for, because going into this epidemic, we had a stable staffing situation, very stable staffing situation, has ridden out all of the extra work that needed to be done as a result of this epidemic. So that was a very useful aspect of the whole thing. So basically, that's the background for it. Now, Jim, as I said, is going to be meeting with you in the not too distant future to present the details of this. I would ask you if you have any specific financial questions that you pose them to Jim in anticipation of him coming forward. I'll be with him. But Jim is the one who really understands the details of how this is applied. And I would say to you that I very much appreciate the ongoing support of the select board. I know Tri-Town really values that. I also want to say that I know in the recent couple of weeks, there was some misunderstanding. I know Patrick brought up a couple of questions to me a while ago about the Tri-Town methodology. I think basically, he told me he was going to bring this up before the select board in public. I thought he intended to give me the opportunity to present to you just what I did just a moment ago, but I didn't attend that meeting. And so Patrick posed the questions, but I wasn't there to respond to them like I'm doing now. And I think his posing the questions was totally misunderstood as some sort of criticism of Tri-Town. Let there be no doubt. Patrick White is a steadfast and has always been a reliable supporter of Tri-Town and the Board of Health. And I've relied on him in the past a lot of times, and I look forward to going forward with that. Please don't have any misunderstandings based on my not having participated in that particular meeting. So again, I want to thank you for your ongoing support. And as I said, Jim will answer the details of the financial agreement, but if you have any questions, any further questions about how we actually got to where we are, I'll be happy to answer them now.
Do we have any questions from the public?
No, not seeing it.
No. No, I mean, my understanding of this is basically that the allocations, the percentage allocations are based on the total services provided to each community, and it's on a 3-year average a rolling 3-year average, so that those percentages as allocated in our agreement are based on all the services that are provided, not any just one section of services, but the total services provided to each town. So that's been my understanding when we've approved this in the past, and that certainly hasn't changed, correct?
Yes, that's correct. You're exactly right, Roxanne. We have a rolling 3-year average. It's reviewed every year. And as I said, we had, Jim, Jay, and I had 3 different ways of incorporating the services and the revenues. We each used different techniques to do it, but when Jim ran the figures using all of these things, it ended up with the same numbers anyway. So we took Jim's, which is basically what you're describing now. And Jim will describe that in detail for you, just to, if you have any questions about how it sorts out in terms of what percentage the town does of this or does of that, or what revenues the town gets from this or that. I would say just one other thing to keep in mind about this too, just so you understand this. Jim is a wonderful grant getter. You know, he's got grants for tobacco surveillance. He just got a $4 million grant for nursing, which will save Stockbridge. Instead of Stockbridge having to hire the nurse per se through Tri-Town, the hiring of the nurse will come through funding by this grant, which is because of all the hard work Jim did to bring together the various boards of South County to form the Southern Berkshire Health Collaborative. And that's an ongoing effort to get more grants through that. And I think we can expect to save the towns more money that way too, from that point of view. So that's another aspect of it. I think that you should bring forward and ask Jim about when he does present the budget, is how much do the towns save from these grants that he's been getting? And it's actually quite a bit of money. But yes, you're right. That's exactly how it's allocated. I'm sorry to digress.
That's okay. I mean, certainly Jim Willis has been a great asset to Tri-Town Health. And I, for one, feel he does an excellent job. And we're well aware, because we once in a while are asked to kick in funds so that he can then go after various grants. So we're well aware that he is a great asset, and that he certainly is doing a very good job for all 3 towns. And when this comes on the agenda for the annual agreement, I'm sure that Jim can answer and field any questions that the public may have, if there's anyone out there that's still confused in any way, shape, or form as to how those allocations are done. So thank you very much, Charlie.
But
Thanks for the opportunity.
can I just clarify though? I mean, let's just remember, the job of this board is we're the executive of the town. So when it comes to spending the town's money, we often have questions for every single department. I remember last year when the chief, who's in the room, came up and presented, we had questions for him. That didn't mean we were against the police force. I think that asking questions that have to do with money is our job. And in this case, it was ARPA funds, which are not part of the standard budget. Michael answered the question. I was satisfied. We all voted for the thing. I'm a little confused how this is interpreted as somehow being against Tri-Town. It simply was doing our job as oversight. At least that's how I was approaching it. And if I gave anyone the impression that I was, not supporting Tri-Town, I certainly did not intend to do that, and would certainly apologize for leaving that false impression, if that was something I did.
Well, we never had that impression, Patrick, so don't.
I talked to Jim the next day, and I explained why I asked the question and how I was satisfied. So I'm good if you guys are.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the public at this point?
No hands are up.
All right, hearing none. We'll move on. Thank you very much, Dr. Kenny. Okay, next on the agenda are project reports from various departments concerning the Butler Bridge and Interlaken Park for the Averitt Road Bridge construction. So Michael, can you fill us all in on that?
Yeah. Slightly. Just to make sure I'm getting picked up on the microphone. Because we have a
A lot of noise
blower
outside.
outside right now, so just make sure everybody can hear. So just a couple updates on what's happening. So two items, I do have two items on for you guys to consider votes on. But then first I'll hit on some of the other projects. So first of all, our main bridge over Interlaken is nearing completion. The binder coat's down, side rails, there's some testing, some reports that have gone to our engineers, but Maximilian's really done an excellent job on getting this project done in such a timely fashion. To be honest, I truly believe they would have hit the October 30th deadline that originally we had if it wasn't for the fact that they lost a total of 18 working days due to water that was higher than the site was underwater. So that definitely led to the delays. That's almost 4 weeks of work that couldn't be completed in July and August. So, due to the weather conditions, but we were able to hit most of our milestones. We will have the bridge open. Just so people are aware, there will be a 1 to 2 week period in the spring where the top binder coat, loom seed, and some finish work will have to be done on the bridge, and the bridge may be closed for a portion of that while that work is done. But a majority of the work is done. The bridge will be open and we will be able to use it for the winter and then that small span where the finish work. So right now our engineers are working with them to identify all those ones that'll get taken care of, those punch list items and finishing items that'll be done in the spring for that project. So
we're still anticipating it'll be open
by the end of this
by
month.
the end of this month.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it may even be right now. I mean, it was close. They're very close. So
Oh, the sooner the better.
yes. Averick Road has begun the work over there. Items have been removed, and they're getting preparation to bring in the preformed casts and get it all set, completed, and then done. And that'll be done over the winter period here. So it's good timing, but that brings me to the first item.
So wait, you were saying Averick is going to be done by when? The first
It's
Averick?
going to be done over the winter. So it'll be
Yeah, the work is being done.
about 90-day process that
Okay.
the project done. There may be some weather delays, things like that. You never know whenever you're working inside streams. So one of the things that has come up is that they're gonna have to put steel plating down and others over the other bridge in order to get items in while construction's happening. And because the entire area needs to be a construction site, that we close Interlaken Park for starting, basically starting after this weekend, close the park, and then it would reopen once the new bridge has been installed and reopen in the spring. So I don't have a definitive date, but we can announce when it's reopened, but it would be closing the park. If for some reason we want to try to maintain the park open, they would have to set up fencing that would have to be movable and it would increase the cost of the project itself. Plus there's concerns of whether they could how they'd even manage it as far as keeping it open. So the best bet is to just close it down, get the project done, and then open it back up. I think timing wise, we are moving into the winter, less of a time frame. So I'm asking the board to, that at this point we close the park.
How do we physically close the park?
So the one bridge is gone and the other bridge would be fenced right off at the other end in order for them to put the plating down and complete the work. So.
Okay.
So the two parts of the entranceways to the park would be closed. So. Yeah.
I'll make a motion, but it would be great if we put a sign in place as soon as possible.
Yes.
No.
I will request of them signage and the rest so that, and I've already been in touch with Earl Moffett from Foresight about this and making sure that it's noted and that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fine, and it's fortunate that we're going into winter.
All right.
This is happening, so the timing is actually quite good. But yeah, to facilitate this getting done, I think that just makes sense.
And this is primarily a safety issue, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's safe,
It's
the
a
site
construction
control,
site.
construction site.
Right,
So you have to secure the construction site.
okay, yeah.
It's complicated because the other bridge is out and they're gonna have to put, and they don't want people going over the other bridge while they put, plating and other stuff down, they're, it's the best way to get this done in a timely manner and in a safe manner for everybody.
Right.
So.
All right, so I make a motion that we immediately close the Interlaken Park for the purpose of finalizing the Averitt Road Bridge construction.
For a second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So the other project is, as you guys know, bridges that carry traffic are inspected. We have 11 bridges in the town that are inspected by Mass DOT. As every 2 years, they get tested and we get reports back saying, here's what's happening at your bridge, here are issues you need to address. Right now, we have engineering work being done based on one of those reports on the Tuckerman Bridge, looking at some issues underneath the Tuckerman so that we make sure we don't end up with another bridge closure. But there are a couple bridges in town, and one I've already gotten an engineering to do an assessment of, and then the other one would be the bridge at the end of Park Street that goes to Ice Glen. It's probably been a while since that's been looked at. So like I said, there's no one looking at those bridges. The other ones are. So right now, I did reach out to Ty and Bond about doing an assessment on the Butler Bridge. And that would allow us to just understand what's happening on that bridge, get ahead of it so that we can address any smaller concerns as far as what's happening up there. Preliminary look at it, just going up and, visual inspection is it just looks like there's some rust and some other things in some spots. And what you want to do is get to them now. And they can be sanded down, epoxy covered and the rest so that these don't develop into larger issues. So this just is an ongoing attempt to get ahead of our bridges and stay ahead of them. So like I said, and if there's any others that I'm not aware of, but like I said, most of the other ones are inspected. And of course, a lot of our culverts are being inspected and evaluated right now through the culvert assessment program through the MVP, which that started. And then there's other MVP programs that are coming up shortly that Katie came in from BSC Group's going to come on the 9th to give us an update on the MVP and the MVP program. So we're just continuing to move ahead with that. So I did distribute to the board the proposal from Ty and Bond to do the assessment of the bridge. I will note, as you noted, Patrick, when I sent it out, I sent the scope of work plus their contract. I've already sent them our contract that they would have to agree to.
Right.
So, as far as ownership of documents, things like that are included in it. So we are using our standard contract. So right now it's the scope of work that they would come in. It would give us an idea of what's happening at that bridge and then what measures we can take while the bridge is in good shape. Let's do the small cost things to keep it where it needs to be.
So we have.
An estimate of the cost of this study?
20,000.
Yeah.
20,000?
Yep, right in the proposal.
So, and how are we paying for that?
So we have enough money in the bridge borrowing from before. That was for a list of, basically, it's an open thing for bridges that the town did a number of years ago.
Okay.
So I have enough money in there to cover engineering through that. And then what we'll do is we'll look at what options we have for funding any repairs that we have and then going from there. But I think the timing's good. We can get it done. We can get it done in time to, in case we need to put up any money toward this annual town meeting, if there are some items that need to be addressed. So.
Right.
Yep.
So just while we're on the topic, Park Street, for example, at the end of Park Street, is one of those two parcels owned by the town? Because I know on one side it's Laurel Hill property.
Right, that's what I wasn't 100% sure of. So that's why originally I wasn't even sure if that was our bridge.
Well, the thing is,
Understanding is,
a prior select board, had this conversation and determined, I don't know if it was with town council or not, that, the claim that was made, as I understand, I could be wrong, is that if it spans the water is not, it can't be private property. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. But, I think there's a couple of bridges over by the golf course, and we should just be aware that the golf course itself is not all owned by the golf course. You've got one legal entity, the golf course, that owns about a half or 60% of it, and the other 40% is owned by Laurel Hill. And if the bridge spans from one side to the other, I want to know if it's owned by the town or if it's owned by the golf course.
They're not owned. So what you're mistaking is the waterway itself is state property. The river itself. Structures over can be owned by multiple organizations, including private entities.
All right.
So the waterway itself is not owned by any individual private owner or anything else.
So if a bridge goes over and connects one property to another property owned by two different entities, who owns it?
Somebody should be the owner of the bridge when it was constructed. So,
Which was like 100 years ago.
right, but that, if it's two private parties, it's between the private parties. There are definitely private bridges over rivers. There are public municipal owned bridges over, and then there are state owned bridges over waterways. So they can be any one of those, the structure itself. The waterway is what you're referring to as no one can own. And it's the waterway itself.
Michael, this conversation came up in the context of wondering whether Laurel Hill owned the Park Street Bridge or the town did. And the feeling of that board was that the town did. Now, the only reason I bring this up is that, with those golf course bridges, many, they're open to the public 9 months a year. In the summer, folks, because the golf course is open, don't generally use them. But like right now, people are literally on all those bridges all the time. And I just want to make sure that that we're not all sort of pointing fingers at each other, in terms of.
what other bridges are you talking about? What other golf course bridges are you talking about?
There's two pedestrian bridges over at the golf course.
Yeah,
Those are golf courses.
well, those are pedestrian bridges which are presumably owned by the golf course.
I'm just saying that the golf course on one side, I know at least one of those bridges has two different owners of the property depending upon which side it's on.
Which one are you talking about there?
The one that is, north of West Main.
Tuckerman Bridge?
No, not the Tuckerman Bridge carries traffic. I'm talking about the pedestrian bridge.
Right. Well, are you even addressing privately owned pedestrian bridges?
No, we don't have a right to purchase privately owned. We don't have a right to spend public funds on private property.
Right.
So unless there's a binding agreement in place that for the public good or something, but if there's nothing there, this is where
I mean,
those bridges, I cannot see how they are owned by the town. And that was one of my questions about Park Street Bridge as to whether or not, who exactly is the owner, and then if not, if the town's gonna maintain it, there should be some agreement in place. That's basically there for the public good to access, say, our parcel over there as an exchange back. But as far as just private bridges spanning a river, stream, or anything else, no, we don't.
Okay.
We don't own those.
Are they being inspected by the town?
No.
No, they're private bridges.
The only bridges that are inspected are the 11 bridges in the town that are identified as transporting traffic that are large enough in a width that meet the criteria to be inspected by the state. So in the case of the Butler Bridge owned by the town, there's no inspections happening of that bridge. So this is, let's have an assessment on that bridge done. And then if there are any other bridges that we need to, typically your bridges are that a town owns is typically your roadways.
Right, no, of course.
But in this case, we have the Butler Bridge that was turned from a roadway bridge to a pedestrian bridge because it could no longer meet the
Right.
criteria to carry vehicles
Right.
based on the weight of vehicles now and everything else. So
And
I mean, the Butler Bridge was originally built by the Butler family.
Right.
Because the guy was a bridge like aficionado.
and it's in the library.
I just want to make sure that all the bridges are safe. That's mostly the thing. So if it's a private property issue, that's great.
Right.
You know,
So at any rate, I mean, the bottom line here, in terms of approving this or not, is I think there's an attempt here to be proactive as opposed to reactive and to ultimately save money in the long run. You know, we need to have a maintenance plan over a span of 5-10 years so that we're always anticipating and doing appropriate maintenance so we never get in the situation again where we have a bridge that has to be completely shut down and create detours for extended periods of time. So I, for one, think this is an excellent idea to
me
set
too.
up the Butler Bridge and make sure that, you know, we're taking appropriate care of it. So you want to make a motion or would you like me to make a motion?
make a motion, we authorize Michael to proceed. Obviously, the language is changing on the agreement. We talked about that. Right.
Okay, well, I think we need to be specific.
Yeah,
So,
if you're authorizing me to contract with Ty and Bond
Yeah,
for an
Right.
assessment of the Butler Bridge.
right.
right.
What he said. I'll second that. Did you make that? I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a move in
Yeah,
the
no, I think it's
direction.
good.
Okay, let me see.
Not to beat a dead horse, but what is the process of getting an answer on the Park Street Bridge? Because that has not been painted in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah,
With Russ.
it's another one to look at.
I'm gonna work on that
Okay.
and get back to the board on that.
All right, and Michael, do you have the verbiage for the winter parking ban?
Yeah, it's on the, it was in the packet.
They call it the package.
I'm not sure I have it.
It's right after the tie and bond contract in the packet. Go ahead, check it. I can read it if you want. I think I got it right here.
I'm not sure it's here. Here it is. All right,
Hold
so
on 1 second. I'm not sure.
I've got it.
No,
Did you wanna pull it
I
up?
got bounced out of the meeting
Oh, no.
on my laptop, so I'm just looking up right now.
Oh, I don't see anybody on the screen either.
At any rate, so winter parking
Well, no,
ban,
actually because we have it remote, we gotta try to,
is everybody kicked off?
that's what I'm not 100% sure because,
Oh, no.
no, it looks like,
No, Stockbridge Select Board's still on.
Right.
Bill's on, Clarence is on, Margaret's on. Can they hear us?
Clarence, if you're there, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay.
right, so I think it's just.
All right, well,
I
I'm
think
going to
we
go
have a
ahead.
temporary glitch.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and read this then. Winter parking ban, Stockbridge, Massachusetts. The Stockbridge Chief of Police, Daryl G. Fennelly, announces the town of Stockbridge's annual winter parking ban, which begins on November 15th, 2021, and remains in effect until March 15th, 2022. This notice is in accordance with Article 4, Section 7, which reads, "No person shall allow, permit, or suffer any vehicle registered in his name other than one acting in an emergency to be parked on any street between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. This ban on all-night parking is in effect from November 15th to March 15th, and any cars left on the street will be towed at the owner's expense. The ban is intended to keep the streets clear for snow removal." So everybody be aware, no overnight parking. Let's see, moving on. Next item on the agenda is to announce the December meeting schedule. So we will have meetings, the select board will have meetings December 2nd at 6:30 PM, December 9th at 6:30 PM, and December 16th at 8 AM. Just so everyone is prepared. We next need to vote to accept the contract for Town Administrator Michael Canales.
Make a motion, we accept the contract?
All right, I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And unfortunately, the next item has a little bit of sadness attached to it, but also, I think, great expectations for Chris Marsden. We have to vote to accept the resignation of Chris Marsden. Chris Marsden has accepted a job with MEMA and will be moving on. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Chris, and the select board would like to thank Chris for his years of service to this town. Obviously, he will still live here and be among us, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's when someone is going to leave the town's employ, this is the best kind of circumstance that you can have, that they're moving on to a better opportunity. So we need to vote I move to vote to accept the resignation of Chris Marsden with our best wishes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If, one thing, because I know Patrick, you mentioned this, sometimes we throw out anachronisms and people don't know what they are. So
Oh,
Chris is
right.
going to work for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Association. He's been the emergency management director for the town for many years. It's an area he very much specializes in and enjoys. And it's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah.
And when's his last day?
His last day is December 3rd.
Okay.
Daryl?
If you don't accept it, does that mean we can make him stay?
Let's see, what time have we got?
We
We still have, okay, it's
we still have
8:46. Okay, moving on. We need to take action on a one-day alcohol license for the Berkshire Botanical Garden for a fundraiser on December 3rd, 2021, from 5 PM to 7 PM.
Motion, we grant the one-day alcohol license on December 3rd from 5 to 7.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We want to issue a thank you to the Stockbridge Housing Authority for in lieu of taxes payment of $839.12. So thank you very much to the Stockbridge Housing Authority. And we are still early for our other special permit hearing.
So if you want, what we can do, we can't go to executive. We should then probably just take a recess, mute it, and then open up at 9, the special, because we have to open that at 9. We can't do it early.
Exactly.
Yep.
All righty, so since the only other item on our agenda right now is to go into executive session, we will be taking a recess until 9 AM. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, is the discussion lengthy in executive session or we have?
You never know, so
don't know.
Okay.
we need to, yeah.
9 AM. Sorry for the delay. But we did need to wait until 9 AM to open the hearing, so I move that we open the special permit hearing to consider the application of Matthew Thatderis and Shani Porras for property located at 8 Mackinac Terrace and to waive the reading of the notice to be incorporated into the minutes. So unfortunately, today, due to the vote requirement of a unanimous vote of the 3-member board, which unfortunately Chuck Cartillo could not be here because of a work situation. I move that the hearing be continued to Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 PM.
December 2nd or 9th?
We're going to go with the
they
second
have
because
conflict with the
Brent
ninth.
has a,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just wanted to make,
so
okay, second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you, and I apologize, but
May I make a request? Would it be possible
Yes.
for us, I had a chance to speak with the building commissioner yesterday. He had one item that we had discussed relative to this project. Would it be possible for us, we understand we'll have to present the application to the full board on the 2nd. Would it be possible for us to have a brief discussion with respect to the building height element with regards to this application? Our intention was, even if the hearing was not going to be voted on today, we were going to hope to have a discussion at least around that point and hoping that we might get any feedback that the board may be willing to share today in anticipation of the second.
Well, I'm not sure that that's necessarily a good idea. I would rather have Selectman Cardillo hear the entire thing so he can vote on this entire thing.
But I think that the building inspector and Michael can clarify,
I was gonna say that if you would like to,
I've spoken with the commissioner, I given him information, I think he and I at least have an understanding of our positions on that, but understanding that the granting authority, but we'll wait till the second, that's fine.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the second.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right.
These were just the plans that we had emailed.
Oh, great.
Yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any reason we can't come back into session to vote.
we would go to the other room and come back. Because we don't have a way of going into a breakout room on this system. Remember, we've run into that issue before. But we can go into the planning board room.
Right, but we're going to come back into open session.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to move that we enter into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct a contract negotiation with non-union personnel, our police chief. And we will be returning to open session to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we shall return. Hello, we are back.
Vote to come out of vote to come out of executive.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I'm sorry, my fault.
All right, so we need to vote to come out of executive session. I move that we close executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I now move, since we have no further action to take today, I move that we close the select board meeting. We adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.